Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon Geeky Sparkles sitting this video out. We're going to talk about what could be the video game crash of 2025. It's not looking too good. Console sales are the worst they've been in 3 decades. 3 decades. This is crazy, right? I mean, it doesn't help they keep raising the prices. It doesn't help that people are going back and playing older games because the new games suck and they cost too much and they ship unfinished and there's lots of drama around the people making the games. So we're going to take a look at this. I looked at it the other day and I was kind of flabbergasted. That's with the Switch 2. And actually one of the best selling consoles is this next Playground, which I wasn't even paying attention to, but it's basically the Kinect. Remember the Xbox Kinect? Yeah, my kids loved it. We played it all the time. We probably played it every day. And for some reason, Xbox decided they didn't want to do that anymore. And now this next Playground has come in, and they've actually beaten Xbox this year. It's insane. So let's talk about this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to more.clownfishtv.com. That's more.clownfishtv.com. Let's go with this. This is coming from IGN. Video game physical software and hardware sales just had the worst November in the US since 1995. Red flags. Oh, you think. And then we had these activists protesting outside of the Game Awards because they were mad that they've lost their jobs this year, these game developers. I'm like, if the market is the worst it's been in 3 decades, where do you think the money's coming from? I'm just saying. November 2025 was shockingly terrible for video game sales in the US. While we traditionally think of November as a huge sales month, yeah, with Christmas and everything, November 2025 was the worst November in video game hardware unit sales and the worst in physical software dollar sales in the US since 1995. That's according to Circana's monthly report, which paints a dismal picture of last month's commercial performance. So the industry in the US saw declines across the board in hardware, accessories, and console spending for an overall drop of 4% year over year at $5.9 billion in total spending. Hardware, here we go. More specifically, hardware spending was down 27% year over year. The lowest hardware spending total for November since 2005. Even worse, unit sales reached 1.6 million, which is the lowest November total since 1995's 1.4 million. Now, 1995, if my memory serves me correct, we were at the end of the 16-bit era. So I believe that the Super NES and the Genesis were probably still selling somewhat, but we also had, add-ons like the 32X. We had, I think, the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn were coming out about that time. So, yeah, but I mean, there are a lot more gamers now than there were back then, right? A lot more people game now. So, I mean, it could be front-loaded. It could be because, everybody that wanted a Switch 2 bought a Switch 2 at launch. It could be that the current generation's been around for like freaking 6 or 7 years now. I mean, the PS5 actually wound up being the best-selling console, which is shocking because it's been out for so long. And only now does it feel like the PS5 is coming into its own, which is so weird. It kind of reminds me of the PS2 in that regard, where when the PS5 first came out, I'm like, don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. It's not, there's no reason to rush and buy one. We had one when it first came out. And I feel the same way about the Switch too. Like, we did bite the bullet and buy one just because it was there and it sat there on the shelf for a while. My wife's like, do you want one? I'm like, well, maybe we should get one so we could review stuff. And I literally played it twice. I think I played it twice. I don't really care. And I'm not real happy with Nintendo. But yeah, I think a lot of people are just going back to retro games. They're tired of not owning their games. The consoles cost too much. I mean, Xbox, we're talking these consoles are 5 years old. They're jacking the prices up. Back in the day when your console was 5 years old, it was like $50 or $99, right? It said that's representative of declines across the board. Xbox Series hardware sales were down 70% year over year. PS5 sales were down 40%, and combined unit sales of Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 were down over 10% from Switch sales last year, despite being a launch year for the Switch 2. People were tired of it. I think people were tired of the predatory gaming industry, especially the AAA gaming industry. Again, like I said, if I had it my way and I could make a console, I would pretty much just, lock us to PS3, PS4 era graphics. It would have to ship physical. Online play would have to be optional. And just ride it out as long as you can with that hardware, right? I mean, I still play old arcade games. I've got a whole, you should see my office. It's full of arcade machines. I don't need to play any new games. I like some of the new games, but I don't need to play them. I think a lot of people feel that way. So what's going on? As pointed out by Circana Senior Director Matt Piscatella, video game hardware has never been more expensive, reaching an all-time November high of $439 per unit, up 11% year over year. The Xbox specifically saw its average price per unit increase by over 30%, perhaps confirming one reason why folks aren't so keen to buy Xboxes. With the Nintendo Switch 2, Piscatella said he's waiting on sales, or he's watching them very closely, and offers us analysis. Okay, so this is what he says. This was the Switch 2. And I'm telling you right now, as a guy who owns one, it's not worth buying right now. It really isn't. But he says within 6 months in the market, it remains the fastest selling video game hardware in U.S. history. So yeah, that's pretty good. However, part of what was driving that was its availability to be bought during launch window. It's been extremely rare to have such a successful new device not suffer supply constraints going into the first holiday sales period. Unit sales of Switch 2 were lower than those of Switch 1 during each console's first November, but the price points are also quite different. The average price paid for a new Switch in November 2017 was $309, which adjusted for inflation is $405 in November 2025. Okay. That's pretty shocking though. I mean, we're talking like a 25% increase in 7 years. That's insane. Compared to the $486 for the Switch 2 in November 2025. If you adjust for inflation in December of 2025, it's like $600. I mean, the way things are going, right? Perhaps it's a case of demand having been pulled forward earlier in the year because people could find them. Or perhaps the mass market is not as quickly adopting Switch 2 as it did Switch. There is no purpose. There is no point in buying a Switch 2 at this point in time. Coming from a guy who owns one, we have a handful of games. None of them are absolute must buys or must plays right now, and you have to pay to upgrade your old games, and the upgrades are not enough to warrant buying a whole new console, in my opinion. Especially if you already have another, a PS5 or you have a gaming PC or something. I mean, if you really, really, really like Donkey Kong, okay, go buy a Switch 2. But I'm telling you, the good games will come, but it's going to be a year or two. I very seldom buy consoles at launch anymore. And the only reason we bought this one was so we could, review the games coming out for it. So anyway, perhaps consumers are looking elsewhere for holiday gifting as the prices continue to rise in video game hardware. Tough to say at the moment. Yeah, everything costs too much. There's one piece of hardware that's doing okay, and that's the Next Playground. Yeah, it was the third best-selling piece of video game hardware of November by unit sales, surpassing the Xbox Series, while the more expensive Xbox Series beat it in dollar sales. PS5 was first in both categories. The Switch 2 was second. PS5 beat the Switch 2. That's crazy. Piscatella calls the Next Playground a remarkable story, noting that while everyone else is having a bad time, it just had a superb November by comparison. The Kinect sold so many Xbox 360s. Like, I think these game companies have forgotten the core demographic historically for video games has been kids and families. And that's why we bought a 360. We bought it for the Kinect. And the kids, like I said, they played it every day. They played that and they played the Wii. So we actually felt pretty good about letting them play video games. We're like, here you go. You can exercise, And then we got them iPads, and they just parked it in front of the iPads, and they didn't move as much. I liked it better when they played the Kinect and the Wii. But there we go. That's, let's see here. Where were we? Oh, there we go. Okay. So yeah, they tracked the unit sales for the Playground. They were 7% below its entire tracked lifetime sales at retail through October. It was only $200. It had strong placement at retail and some successful influencer and viral marketing efforts. Next Playground became one of the hottest video game products of the holiday season during the month. Yeah, it's largely sold out. Secondary prices on eBay are soaring accordingly. It's a family system. It's easy to play. It's designed to play. That's what video games used to be. Easy to understand, for the family, for kids, fun, and now they're not fun. They're very expensive, and they're just, a lot of these consoles are just budget cut, cheap ass gaming PCs, right? So things aren't looking better on the content side. Well, Circana reported that content spending was up 1% year over year. That's with subscription spending rising 16%, 2% growth in mobile. Physical software sales dropped 14% year over year to the worst November since 95. Well, okay, physical though. How many games don't even ship physical copies anymore? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it said Call of Duty Black Ops 7 put the Call of Duty franchise back on top for another debut month. It's tricky to make precise comparisons between Black Ops 7 and its predecessor, Black Ops 6, given both games launched into the Xbox Game Pass. Red flags. Here we go. Red flags. This is shaping up to be a pretty weird year. I asked Piscatella. He sounds like he's like a mobster or something. I asked Piscatella what he makes of all this and what it means for the game industry. He pointed out that much of the story remains to be told in December, and that it's possible consumers are waiting for better deals closer to the holidays. I don't think so. I think that is I could be wrong, but I think this is an indicator of things to come, which is people are going to stick with the consoles they have. They're going to buckle down, especially with the RAM prices going up. They're not going to invest in a new console that's not proven yet, especially with the predatory practices going on in the video game industry. And they're going to wait and see what the clear winner is, I think, for the next generation. They might be waiting on like a PlayStation 6. I mean, PS5, like I said, PS5 just feels like in the last year or two, especially with Astrobot and Stellar Blade and a few other games, it has just come into its own. And it took them 5 years, to get there, right? It's possible economic factors and the price of consoles are pushing people to hold off. Yeah. If you've got old consoles, why buy a new console? This is what they said. Retail spending had been holding up relatively well until now, despite the pressure from higher prices we've been seeing in the market. More affluent consumers have kept on spending, which has made up for some of the declines in spending from the less affluent portions of the market. Perhaps this is a sign that those higher prices are beginning to impact purchases of pricier items like consoles, perhaps not. However, if the crunch on RAM pricing continues, if we see rising prices on consoles and gaming PCs over the coming months, it could theoretically be potentially devastating to the dedicated gaming device market. Yeah, I think a day of reckoning is coming. A day of reckoning is coming. I don't think that consumers are going to buy a brand new $1,000 console every couple of years and then buy $80, $100 games. That's insane. Just if you're happy with your PS4, you play it till it breaks, because a lot of people wish they still had their PS2 or their PS1. They're going back and buying N64s. Have you seen Super Nintendo prices lately? I mean, they're going back and buying these older games because they were simple and the games were self-contained and you plug it in and you play. And what are they doing with the new generations beyond giving us a lot of AAA slop that people don't like? They're just re-releasing the same games. So just go back and buy the original console, right? And just play it forever. Yeah, so they said there were some huge red flags. So I think there might be a massive game industry crash coming. I think we have reached peak, at least AAA. We have reached peak AAA gaming. I think it's all downhill from here. Nintendo and Microsoft, if they're going to stay in the game, they could learn a thing or two from the next playground. They used to do this, and they don't do this anymore, but they probably should. I think it was really stupid of them to give up on the kid market, but whatever. What do you guys think? Leave a comment. Let me know. Going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.